Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. When I was in third grade, actually second grade going into third grade, my family moved to a new city. We moved from a small town to a little bit bigger city in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I think we've all experienced the new kid phenomenon. Right? There's like one of two things that can happen. Either the new kid shows up and it's like a new shiny object that everybody wants to hold and pet, and not in a weird way, but right, there's a new kid phenomenon where like everybody's so interested and wants to know their story because it's new. Or it could go the other way, the new kid's the outsider. The new kid's kind of different. Or maybe just because they're new, we build up walls around it and are like, yeah, not so sure I'm interested in anything new in my life. My experience was a lot more like the second one, actually. I moved from, like I said, a small town to a bigger town. And I remember showing up in grade school and from the small town kind of always being picked for what team I would want. The captains actually probably being the captain. I showed up to this new school and I'd be one of the last picked. Sometimes not picked at all. I remember showing up to school and just hating it. I would not talk to anybody. I wouldn't talk to a single person until we got to class and we'd start the Pledge of Allegiance. And the moment I opened my mouth, I'd been holding in tears and I couldn't get past the national anthem. So then I'd go to the counselor's office and I would cry, and it would perpetuate the problem because that new kid's weird and he cries in class, right? It was awful. It was an outsider. I think we've all experienced being an outsider in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's been overt and we've experienced from other people, or maybe we've just felt like something's not right. This year, as you approach Christmas, I just want to encourage you to be excited about the fact that you've experienced being an outsider. Because the Christmas story is our story. It's not just some story told long ago. The Christmas story is the story of outsiders, so it's the story of you and me. See, we like to think of the Christmas story starting when an angel appears to Mary and everything from there happens, right? And it happens perfectly. But that's not what happened. Actually, the Christmas story starts way before that. An angel appears to Zechariah and Elizabeth. See, Zechariah and Elizabeth didn't have any kids, and they were well beyond the years of bearing children. And in Bible times, if you didn't have kids, then it was assumed that you had done something wrong, that you had done something to fall out of favor with God. And so when an angel appears to Elizabeth and Zechariah and says, you will have a child. You will have a child who will be named John, and that John will become John the Baptist, who will predict the coming of Jesus, the Christmas story, right? See, the whole story starts with outsiders, people who had fallen out of favor with God, people like you and me. And then the next group of people who the Christmas story, a lot of it is told through the perspective of the shepherds. Right? The Christmas story talks all about how an angel shows up to shepherds and proclaims, hey, shepherds, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. In Luke 2:10 it says, because I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people. See, the angel doesn't say, I've got great news. There's this guy, Jesus, this Savior, who's come for everybody that fits in a certain mold. Only people who are in favor with God. Right? No, the angel says, I bring good news that will bring great joy to all people. Insiders and outsiders. This is the first time you and I have been included. Right? It's good news because it's a story of outsiders. See, sometimes we want something different. We want the story to be perfect. And yet if we put it into our lives, we realize our story is not perfect. And so God stepped into this world through Jesus in an imperfect way. He doesn't create the perfect, nice, neat package of a story. He writes the story from an outsider's perspective. He comes to the world as an outsider. Because the Christmas story is not just the story of Jesus, it's our story too. So this year, as you prepare for Christmas, get excited. Look for the places in the story where you can relate, where it becomes more your story than just somebody else's story. See, the God of the Bible came into this world and met us exactly where we were at. He met Zechariah and Elizabeth right where they were at. He met the shepherds right where they were at, the outsiders. He wants to meet you right where you're at. And he wants to give you what you need. Not necessarily what you want, but he wants to give you what you need. He wants to give you a Savior. So this year, consider where you fit in that story and consider what God is trying to tell you and what you need from him. Remember, the Christmas story is your story. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to follow us each week, click here to subscribe. And if you want to take it a little bit further, click here for discussion materials.